Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Carbon, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Germain. And we're here to join you once again to share all the wonderful news about those Tampa Bay Rays with a special Rays Up edition. Hey, Matt, how you doing today, brother?
One game above 500, Mark.
Oh, I love that bubble.
We'll be there again, I'm sure.
Yeah, I may have said this before. It's like, like when a person's out there fishing, you got your rod, your reel, and you got the little float just right above the water, and it keeps kind of bouncing a little bit up and down beneath the water. And that's the way I kind of feel that 500 is with the Rays, just bouncing back and forth. But man, I tell you what, some of us old folks, it's been kind of hard to watch the Rays as late as they've been going. It might have been a better week to watch the minor leagues.
Well, it's funny you say that because the attendance in Oakland has been very minor league like. The attendance for the first game on Monday was under 4,000.
Oh, good Lord.
And the next game was 4,300. So you're talking about, less than 8,000 fans have seen, or just over 8,000 fans have seen the two games. And at this point, you have to wonder, how MLB is going to keep breaking even with these games that they're showing. You're almost back to the 2020 season when they had, the cardboard cutouts in the stands. They may as well go that route.
Wow. That's hard times, brother. I mean, you got to wonder, if they brought Rick Astley in or maybe Nickelback to play and something to draw some people in the seats. I don't know that, of course, those probably wouldn't be the best choices, but it is sad. I got to tell you a quick story. Recently when I was at work at the museum, I had a couple of fans come up to me and they said, I don't know how these teams that do so poorly can stay in business. Well, obviously, yeah, with the A's, the Athletics, and that may not be, I can't speak, that might not be happening. But here's the thing. I said, here's what you got to remember. Every time one of those Ohtani or Judge jerseys sell online, no matter how poor your team is doing, you're getting a piece of that action. So,
Right.
If you're the Oakland A's or whatever, and the TV rights. So I had to point out to them, it sucks when you see nobody out there in the stands. It seems hurtful, and it's got to hurt the team's morale when they look in the stands and see there's nobody there. It's like you said, 2020 all over again. Get out the cardboard cutouts.
Well, Mark, I'll just put it to you this way. So when I went to New York and we got free tickets from the DFO office, I ended up saying, you know what, like I'm just gonna spend a little bit more on concessions at the stadium because I got the tickets for free. And I got to the thing, and you got to remember, I'm a Canadian, so I'm paying with Canadian dollars. So right away, you're paying an extra 20%.
You're paying with Canadian dollars at the in New York, and that must have been something with concessions.
Well, yeah, you're talking about a 2-bite hot dog, right? Like not a huge one, and a little cup of beer that might have been, 5 big sips, and they wanted $12 American for it. And I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, that's $18 Canadian just for a little bit of beer and a hot dog. What is the profit margin on that?
Oh, yeah.
So, when you look at the concessions alone, they're making about 98% back in profit. And when it goes to parking, it's almost 100%, other than what they have to pay the attendees to take your money. So the money they split up before the season even starts, you got to remember there's already people paying for season tickets that are going to do it no matter what. Yeah, all that to say that the teams make their money from TV deals and people that buy season tickets more than anything else from the beginning of the whole thing.
Well, and that's the truth. There's no doubt about it. The season tickets are there. The concessions. I'm curious sometimes to see how that would actually be measured once we start shortening the games. If they only had 4,000 people in the stadium, last night, and you've got, let's see, a game that's not even 2 hours long. Do you close the concessions after the 7th inning? And would anybody be going there anyway? I don't know.
So let me ask you this, Mark. With a new stadium the Rays are putting up, are they not going to have restaurants around it that are actually open all year long, and they're not really dictated by the game length?
Well, if you're talking outside the stadium itself, I would say yes. While I don't have that, as a matter of fact, the whole idea of this business development thing, that would seem essential, that they're going to have that as part of it. Uh, but we know a lot of times what we hear from politicians and what's delivered isn't necessarily what shows up in the final blueprint.
Yep, that's a fact.
It's speaking of politicians. I know I'm jumping around here a bit, Matt, but my gosh, buddy, I saw Colleen Wright, who's been on the show with us before, a journalist with the TampaBay.com. I was interested to see that Colleen had did a story about what's happening post the approval of the stadium, and that Mayor Ken Welch over at St. Pete had given bonuses, pardon me, had given bonuses to a lot of the people there in this city of St. Pete and the government offices. But that didn't go over well with a lot of people. And those bonuses have been rescinded. And the city's saying, you got to pay us back. So, oh
Yeah,
gosh.
the timing is everything on that one, because if he does that in March next year, probably nobody blinks an eye, or it's just noted, no big deal.
Well, plus we had the primary yesterday, and now I think there
To
was
do it
one.
right after the vote.
Yeah, I was wondering how that was going to play out, man. I mean, evidently one of the guys who did approve everything with the raise, he was one of the folks that was going to be voted back, and he was very, very critical when that came out about that money going to people inside the government who helped get the raise in place. So he was trying to play both sides against the middle, and I think it worked out for him. I think he did win his election. So there you go.
Interesting.
So a couple of little things being here in Tampa. It's been great seeing Lake Mary from advance in the Little League World Series. Just watching where a young player, he's from the team, is trying to impress or make an impression upon the opposing pitcher. He gets up there and he does his little Juan Soto shuffle. It's like, all right, kid, go ahead, give it to him.
Yeah, anything with flair, people love, but as long as it's measured and it's done in the right instances, people will eat it up for sure.
What we talk about flair, and I always think of, when I hear that word and I think Rays, the first thing I think of is Jose Siri.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe he just had a little too much, not enough flair, or at least not enough push. I saw him the other day, and I guess I should say last week. And I thought, it reminds me of Machado a few years back. Wasn't seeing the hustle. Pardon me, I wasn't seeing the hustle.
Right. And it's sad to see, because I think I noted on a tweet after that, if you put the talent that Jose Siri has with the work ethic that Mike Brasso has, and the focus that goes along with his demeanor, you probably have an all-star player. Like, you're not going to get cheated on a daily basis. And I think, because of his personality and his lack of focus, he's kind of missing out a little bit on some performance that could help out the team in a lot of cases. So I do like to see him have success, but I think twice getting benched in a season, I know it happens and some teams do it. You're talking about Machado. I remember him calling out Fernando Tatis Jr. for doing similar kinds of things. And I think it's all settled down now, where you don't hear about it in the news at all. So you've seen Machado go through the maturing process. You're seeing Tatis Jr. go through the maturing process. The issue with Siri is that he's about to be 29, if not already there. So, he's not a young guy anymore. Or he should be mature-ish. So it'd be nice to get some consistency between now and the end of the year, so that Rays don't have to make tough choices next year.
Yeah, but I have to applaud Kevin Cash for doing something, for making what I would say is a difficult decision. But after he was out the other day, and after sitting on the bench for a few games, and he brought us the one run that won the game for us the other night, man. That was amazing in and of itself.
Oh, yes, and he's done that a lot this year, where he's kind of taken the team on his back. Probably a good 3 weeks total this year, you could say.
Yeah, we've been very lucky to have him, I think, overall. And I mean, I kind of like some of the cut-ups that he does and everything else to boot. But you've got to have spirit. You got to be committed to what you're doing out there, running up the bases. you know there's the potential somebody will drop a ball. It happens. Get out there, man. Show the hustle. And while I love watching you, Siri, just make sure you can stay on that game, brother. So we'll see how that continues out. Let's see what else. Wild card. Talk to me about the wild card, Matt. This is it still a possibility? We're 6.5 games back, my friend.
6.5. But here's the thing. Okay. So if you're 6.5 back in the National League, you have a lot of teams to go through to get there. So just as an example, the Reds are 6.5 back and they have to go through the Cardinals, Cubs, Giants, and Mets in order to challenge the Braves. Okay. So that's their road to getting into the wild card spot. The Rays, conversely, are 6.5 back. They only have to go through the Red Sox and the Twins. That's it. Those are the only two teams between them and the wild card spot. So the question is, where do those teams stand? And to be honest, it's the Royals as well, who are tied with the Twins in that wild card spot. So three teams right there. The Rays are just challenging those three teams at this point. You could say the Mariners as well because they're tied with the Rays. But I think the Rays have the pitching to get there. There's an interesting development where Jonathan Aranda just came back to the Durham Bulls. There's some hitting that is warming up, heating up in AAA. The Rays seem to be getting a little tiny bit of mojo before they went to out west in their lineup. So it was there against the D-backs, in key moments. Whether or not they can actually rekindle that again, sometime in this series again with the A's and afterwards, I think there's a little bit of hope that they could actually scratch together enough wins on the back of their pitching, mostly, to get back into that race. You could see them chew maybe 2 games between now and the end of August. So now they're 4.5 games back. And then anything is really possible in September because the call-ups, the scheduling, the Rays are playing a lot of games. The Royals, how's their pitching going to hold up? Minnesota had Joe Ryan and a bunch of their pitching go down. The Red Sox have similar issues with their pitching. So they're starting to slide a lot. So it's a matter of who's going to get hot and who's going to start falling. So those two opponents ahead of the Rays and the Red Sox, the Twins have lost 3. The Royals just lost their latest. Can they slide enough for them to catch the Rays to catch them? We've seen bigger gaps get covered by teams on their way to the playoffs. And then the point is, let's say they do it. Let's say they pull it off somehow. Okay, however you want to paint it. They squeeze into the playoffs. How much pressure is there on them at that point? There's no pressure. And to get there, the Rays would have had to beat some pretty darn good teams to get to that position. So they would be hot, what you consider hot, and have no pressure to the point where they can actually go out there and just have fun and perform in the playoffs. And then you'd never know what will happen. They're good enough to beat a lot of those bigger teams. To give you an example, the Yankees, Jared Cole's been on and off health-wise. They just had Louis Keel go down to injury. They have other injuries that are kind of prominent as well that I won't run through them all. The Astros have had a lot of pitching issues. They have some older pitching. Guardians, same thing. So, the playoffs are always about the pitching. And if you have the pitching in the playoffs, you're a dangerous team. I would contend that the Rays, if they make it into the playoffs, would have one of the top 2 pitching staffs going into the playoffs in the American League. So, anything can happen at that point. It would be really fun to see it happen. Whether or not it does, it depends on the hitters, really.
Well, yeah, it does. You can have a great game as far as pitching, and if nobody's putting anything up on the board, it hurts. Mm-hmm. I mean, Shane Baz the other night, what a great game he had. I mean, was it 7 2/3 innings, and there was no runs, scored by the A's, but we barely got a run in there in that game. And to talk about pitching overall, I mean, with Shane coming back, with the other guys coming back, Drew, there is a beacon of hope from that.
And Pepio just back from that spider bite. He must be superhuman at this point, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, man. That's no fun. I'm sure time or two, you being in the military, you've been out in the woods and had to fend off a beast or two, or the insect world. It can be practically venomous.
One of the things I love about Canada, there are no venomous spiders, or
Oh,
they're far and few between. Anyway, we're not like Australia.
it's just too daggone cold for them, man. I tell you what. Well,
So far.
so talk about the new guys. Let's take a peek here at who we've got on board. You were remarking on X.com the other day, and folks, you can find Matt at Matt, and that's MAT underscore Germain, GERMAIN underscore on X, Twitter. And you were proposing, or not proposing, you were actually just acknowledging the people who have been really rising up with offense. And you were talking about Dylan Carlson, and you're talking about Christopher Morel, and how many of us first say, well, look, Brandon's doing really well, and he's doing okay. But the impact that Carlson and Morel was making was much probably larger than we might have guessed.
Yeah, it's like we've said before, the comfort level and how happy they seem and easygoing. Like Dylan Carlson, by at that point when I tweeted it out, was at a 160 WRC plus. He was leading the Rays in August. Josh Lowe, who's always seems to be hot in August and September, had a 153. And then third on the list was Taylor Walls. Taylor Walls was a surprise, or is a surprise contributor offensively for the Rays in August, and that's so great to see. It's especially his approach at the plate. So he's among the top two in terms of strikeout percentages in the league. So you have Luis Arraez at 3.2%, and then Taylor Walls at 4.5. So that's an insanely low strikeout percentage for someone like Taylor Walls, who he wasn't atrocious when it came to strikeouts, but he was normally somewhere between the 15 and 20%. So when you cut that by 66 or 67%, and you're second in the league for the month, that's really significant. Whether or not it continues, we'll see. I don't know what he's changed at the plate, but obviously something is clicking, and that's great to see. And then right behind him, you have Yandy Diaz and Junior Caminero. Christopher Morel, I think, he's having solid at bats and he's having some contributions here and there. Just by having those strong at bats and actually getting on base sometimes. I don't think he's getting much to look at, to be honest, and he's missing some of the things he should be getting. But he seems to be comfortable and growing into the second base role more and more and more. And I think that's probably what the Rays want for. I think there's a competition right now between Curtis Mead and Christopher Morel being right-handed bats at second base for 2025. So they'll take a look at Morel at MLB this year. They'll let Curtis Mead improve his defense in AAA, and that's where he's playing in AAA. And then they'll see what they want to go with next year based on that, if either of them. Because, like I said, Jonathan Aranda is coming back from injury, and he may have a role where he's playing almost every day. If he sticks with the Rays. If he goes elsewhere, then it opens up room for others. All that to say, August hasn't been stellar once you get behind those five, right?
Yeah.
So they need more. They need the depth to step up. They need DeLuca to chip in. They need, the series and the catchers and everybody to get involved, just so that they can actually get all parts of the lineup chugging. Because the competition is just going to get tougher all the way through the rest of August and then in September.
And it is a tough game. These aren't machines that we can turn them on and oil them and expect the same results all the time. In my ignorance, once upon a day, that's exactly how I thought it should be. I would look and say, oh, look, here's the July American League Pitcher of the Month, Taj Bradley. Oh, man, this is fantastic. He is going to be like this throughout the rest of the year. And then I see, oh, wait a minute. Since July 31st, he's lost 4 games against 4 different teams. Yeah, you can be on the top one month and then you can be suffering the next. So I don't know, but we've done, but coming to pitching, I was concerned, but about our relievers when Adam, see Jason Adam when he left. And I thought we might have lost Pete Fairbanks, and I didn't realize that we would lose him, not to a trade, but to an injury. Because I mean, you've seen this because the last few games out, but he had a 2-run home run and another one, a 3-run home run against him. And you knew something just wasn't right with Pete. He wasn't a well-oiled machine that all you got to do is add oil to it. He's going to run like that all the time. But he's a big part of that. And I feel like we've got the strength of this new guy, Uceta. I think he's been helping out quite a bit. Was I think looking at the last 5 games, I think he's given up 0 runs. And let's see, the Rays have won 4 of those games as well. So but there's a method there to address when you have either injuries or players just having difficulty. I think the Rays are very adaptable. They're going to try to make, good changes and between cash and the front office. I think they've been faring pretty well.
The Rays have the second best pen in major leagues for August, and that's after all the moves that you noted. And I think a lot of it has to do with people having a high level of comfort with the roles that they're given. And the Rays have gotten back, to be quite honest, to the whole clock angle thing again. So I'll give you the guys, and you think of where they throw the ball and how they throw it. Kevin Kelly, kind of a really low down right hand side. Manuel Rodriguez, a little bit higher on right hand side. Then you have Garrett Clevenger, who's really low on the left hand side. Lovelady, who's a little bit higher on the left hand side. You've got Uceta, who's a lot more like over the top kind of guy. You've got so much different looks and different speeds that they're using and strengths that it works. But Uceta has just been out of this world.
Yeah, he has. And like I said, I'm daggone glad we got him. I have been wondering though, Matt, and I haven't dug enough into it. We're going to probably do more on a future show about it. And that is the proposed 6-inning minimum for your pitchers. Yeah. I mean, we had the pitch clock and all that, and it came with a few years in minors before it made it up to the major league. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of ironing out what that'll be like. There's going to be people who say, well, yeah, we want to make sure these young men have a chance to play as long as they can, but are we going to be straining those arms more? Are we going to have a pitcher who just completely seems to be failing and hit after hit, is happening to him, and that's going to be the game? That a manager can't pull him out after 5 innings when no matter how bad he sucks. Those are some questions that are going to have to be answered, but I guess they'll be answered in the minor leagues once they come up with a model.
If they bring in the 6 innings pitched model, I will stop watching baseball. I really will. Like I've had enough with the whole tweaking of the rules to the point where it favors the larger market teams.
Yeah.
They are the only ones who can afford those players that can dominate in those roles. And this is all rigging to make sure that those teams end up in the playoffs the most consistently. The Rays have been able to circumvent that by tweaking some things. Now, to be honest, they haven't used the opener very often. They're using it for the 5th starter for the most part, and it's not even all the time. It's just when they need to. I think there's strategy to baseball. There will always be strategy to baseball. The interference coming from Major League Baseball is growing exponentially every year. Players anymore. You can't compare careers, which people love to do. It's all arbitrary now because everybody grew up in different eras with different rules to the point where the game is not recognizable from one year to the next.
Yeah.
It has to stop. Like, stop it. Just leave the game alone for a while. See how it goes. It's not broken. There's no emergency 5. If you want to instill a rule, make it 6-man rotations. Make that the rule because that's going to save arms and keep stars on the mound instead of this stubbornness about having 5-man rotations, which is ludicrous when you can look across the ocean, see Japan, where the Tommy John surgeries are way below what they are in Major League Baseball. And that should be the goal. It shouldn't be, we have to wear them out even more.
Yeah.
and make them throw 6 innings at this rate. That way they're broken quicker and we never have to pay them. Sort of like what we're doing with Shane McClanahan, who already has 2 Tommy John surgeries. And the next time he has another one, he's gone forever. And he may never make the big money because of it. So, the whole premise of these stubborn athletes who need to be on the mound every fifth game has to stop. And to me, the ideal way to do it is to have the scheduling change so that it forces that into place. So if you don't have baseball on Mondays, which nobody goes to games on Mondays anyway, and you have baseball from Tuesday to Sunday, that's 6 games, you have 6-man rotation, you fill those spots, and the story. Then, it doesn't give the chance for somebody to pitch 2 games in 1 week the majority of the time. And maybe you make that the rule. They can only pitch once as a starter in that 6-day period. That's the way I would do it. But if they do that 6 inning minimum, I stop watching. I don't want to watch a game. There's a reason I don't watch Formula One, because they allow these teams to dominate with the engines, the car. They're not even comparable. It'd be like me going out there with a Lada and the next guy going on with a Lamborghini. Well, of course he's going to win the race. So why would I watch? Like, it's the same thing in baseball at that point. And you're seeing, the Astros in there all the time, the Dodgers in there all the time, the Yankees in there the majority of the time. So then it gets to be tiresome. Like, they're not getting higher ratings. So stop trying to rig the game to the large markets and start rigging it to be fair and have those stories. It's exciting to see the Brewers, getting closer and closer to possible World Series appearance. Same thing with the Orioles. Let those things happen. Nobody argues in a Super Bowl when a smaller market team makes it to the Super Bowl that it's a bad thing. So why does baseball have to be any different?
I'm concerned about there being injuries there. There's no doubt about that, Matt. That's one major consideration. And when you think as far as the number of years that a team has control of a player, then and they can have virtually as many pitchers as they want. Half of their roster practically can be pitching. That why not? Why not just grind them out? And if you grind out and an arm is no longer good, bring up another one. We've got a great farm system. Good. Let's bring up another one. And that sounds cold and callous. And maybe the teams and front offices are not that cold hearted, but I know that virtually every one of them, it comes down to that dollar, that profit margin. And the players are seen, I think, sometimes just as a commodity and not as people that you want to take care of. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no faith. Just because when you look at baseball right now, the last 5 to 10 years, right, and number of injuries increasing, etc., what's been done to fix that? Anything? Has anybody done anything to help the pitchers out? No. So what is that telling you? They don't care that all these, we're talking big names. We're not talking small ones. We're talking Scherzer, DeGrom, like all the top names in the game that should be on the mound, putting on the show, are out. And you don't hear one owner saying, oh, we need to tweak this because this is getting ridiculous. Why? Because they're saving money. The more that these young pitchers blow out their arms early, they never have to pay them. They don't have to pay out extensions. And that's it. Then they just turn on to the next one. The Astros are going, and Dodgers especially. The Dodgers are chewing through arms like like a dog on a bone. They're just going through them like crazy. And it's insane. And I remember this like back from my blogging days and a little bit beyond. We used to dissect what pitchers were throwing and what may be hurting them. So what may be causing the Tommy Johns, etc. So for a while, they blackballed the splitter. And they said, okay, nobody's allowed to throw splitters anymore because it's causing too many injuries. Do you hear the same thing now? Is anybody saying that? Is anybody
No. I mean, there's not a voice
saying not to do this, that, or yeah? Nobody's saying anything.
Yeah, it's sad, and sometimes you think of these young players too. They need to cement their position with that team. They don't ever really want to see a manager come out and take the ball from them. So sometimes they don't even the pitcher doesn't necessarily have their own best interest at heart as far as their health, because as a player, they're competitive and they're aggressive and they're going to do what it takes. And they're going to, a lot of times, that maybe that's why we're not hearing as much about it. I don't know.
There's just something not right. If it was dollar related to the point where it was hurting teams, you would hear about it, right? And it's true. But since it's not, and it's actually helping their bottom line, they're silent about it. They're like, yeah, okay, you want to blow out your arm? Go ahead. We'll keep putting Kyle Snyder out there telling you to throw harder with your slider. And when you end up on the Tommy John list for the third time, I don't have to pay you anymore, and I'll move on to the next guy. That's why we have a draft. So it's really, it's sad to say, but I see it. And like Shane Baz being back out there as a starter, throwing 7.2 innings, outstanding. Love the stuff. Love the kid. He's just going to be IL bound eventually again because he's not at the point right now where he has the stamina where he should be going that length.
Yeah.
It would be different if they were growing up that way, and if they had the builds and the things like Nolan Ryan and the guys. So they used to toy a lot more with velocity, right? So he could hit 97, but he would never sit at 97 consistently. He would throw 90, 93, 92, 95, and then, oh, he needs the 97. He brings it out. You have to be able to toy with the speeds, and that's going to throw the hitters off way more than high velocity consistently.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're trying to find out, what it takes to keep those arms healthy. And the 6 inning rule doesn't sound like that's moving in the right direction. To look at this front offices, seeing players as a commodity, and health is not concerned. I've got a farm system, four teams deep, and I can keep bringing them up and bringing them up. People need to be considerate about that. I mean, as fans, we need to be considerate about that, about, hey, it's okay to not let a player go to 100 pitches or expect them to be throwing 95 to 100 all of the time. And then there needs pitchers who have more finesse will emerge. Those who, you take Nate Eovaldi, he has more different pitches and probably has more control of where he puts that ball than most. Part of that's because he has to, and part of it's because that's how he grew. So I think that's something we need to see more of in the future is people who can execute a better pitch.
Right. And just to be clear, like in Japan, they throw more pitches than the guys training in the US do. They just do it in non-game situations and to strengthen their arms for the majority of the time. And then they only have one in-game, per week. So I think I'd love to see one team do that through their system and in the major leagues for a period of time and see how it goes. I think once one team breaks the mold, then you'll have the rest of the people copy that, and we'll do away with a lot of the injuries we have now, which are unfortunate. Because I want to see the best on the mound. I want to see the high talents stay healthy so that we can see them.
Here's a thought: take one of the 30 teams, and they're failing, and all the other owners, they cannot stand that manager, cannot stand that operation. So what we're going to do is they will be suspended for 2 years, that team. And during that time, we'll bring one of those Japanese teams into Major League Baseball. And then the rest of those 29 teams can learn what it means to play it differently.
Oh man, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work out.
No, it wouldn't work for hell, man. But it's just the idea. You sold me on the idea about looking more closely about how they do baseball in Japan and how they're able to keep healthier arms. And I think that's something well worth more discovery. We'll see what MLB decides to do. Well, we want to thank you again for joining Matt and I here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. Just remember, you can find us on Apple. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast directory, we're out there. So thanks again for joining us here today, and we'll talk with you again real soon. Special thanks to XTake RUX for the music rocking forward.